Welcome. This is Astrology Insight Now, a weekly forecast program with astrology and other ways to help you make the most of your week and to heighten confidence for daily life. It's run by Pamela Cuccinell, that's me, the astrologer, and I invite you to find out more about my work at insightoasis.com. I look forward to your joining us every week. Please share with your friends, and here we go.
So now we look at October 27th, 2025. The times I give are Eastern time, so you need to adjust depending on where you are. And basically, we start off with a really strong day. The moon is in the sign of Capricorn. As you know, if you listened last week, we're in the waxing moon cycle, coming off that Libra new moon. And this day, Monday, is very strongly supported again by high level of intuition if you're tapping into that. Even if you're not consciously a person that sort of thinks, oh, I trust my intuition. Let me check in with my gut or my angelic guidance, or however you gauge if you're in a place of truth and centeredness, or if you're kind of getting distracted by a lot of noise. This is a very grounded day to be utilizing that. So advisedly, if you get a sense that you're proceeding in a way that's just push, push, push with no give, no support, and you're starting to question your original intentions, check in with yourself. I mean, there's always places where we might be on a task or a goal or something we're aiming for that the landscape has changed and we have to adjust to see how we're going to bring in the right support systems, including people, money, ease of movement. And if this isn't happening for you, it's important to allow yourself that sense of give, that openness to flexibility about what can come in next. I certainly, those of you who've listened to me for a while know that I have had points in my life where I have, strong-willed as I am, hit certain impasses that I could not plow, talk, or push my way through. And I had to ask myself, especially times when literally it felt like the ground fell off beneath me, what's going to keep me afloat? How do I grab something to stay alive? And at those point in times, it's, yes, one could say it's an act of desperation. And I don't think on Monday we will all be in that place. But it is important to know when you've tapped out the resources. And some of us may very well feel that today. Moon in Capricorn has a leanness about it. It basically looks at, how can I do this on my own 2 feet and with the resources I have available? And if that's not something that can keep you intact, then how do you stretch into what may be available and just waiting for you to ask? Oftentimes on a day like today, I think that some of us might realize certain people, support structures, money resources we were hoping for are not going to come in or are not going to come in soon enough. And therefore, it's important to allow yourself that pivot. And the interesting thing about the moon in Capricorn is that, yes, it's an earth sign, but it's a cardinal earth sign. It's one of the signs that starts a season. So the cardinal signs are actually signs that are geared to initiate, to start things. And if you have a moon in if you have a moon in Capricorn or know someone with a moon in Capricorn, these are people who basically are incredibly resourceful at how they make their next move to do what they have to do. And so with that kind of energetic thrust, sometimes what you'd like isn't necessarily what's available to you. So you work with what you have. And it makes a tremendous resourcefulness. And therefore, on a day like today, and there's a very nice picture in the sky between Mars and Jupiter, I think there's a lot of strong, let's engage in a different way energy around. And so look around, especially if you find yourself questioning perhaps the path you're on, or seeing that things aren't coming together in the rate that you would like it to, then look around, see what's available, check what's out there. And a wonderful way to end this day, especially for people in the Eastern time zone area, is to just go into the dream world with a sense of expectation as to what will come in tomorrow. Either could be through your email, could be through your unconsciousness, could be some sort of revelation, something that comes through that gets you to say, wow, okay, let's explore this. Because Tuesday is the day that really kind of kicks in with a nice momentum for what's going on and where we want to go. Once we get past any like old feelings or old grievances that might be bogging some of us down in morning, early afternoon, whatever the emotional hangover may have been, then we move in to, okay, look at what's here. The thing is, on a day like today, is we might have a lot of different options or thoughts about, well, I could go here or I might try that, and use that really grounded earth energy of the day to kind of sink in and say, okay, what's going to give me the biggest bang for my buck? And again, use your intuition, not just your logical mind. You will get totally the wrong messages if you use your logical mind. Think instead about not thinking and think into what feels like the right avenue to take now. It's a highly productive day, terrific to work on projects that you might want to expand. And again, move into things that give you options that you haven't really seen beforehand, because they are coming. The moon goes void, of course, at 11:38 p.m. So as you can hear, that's pretty much the end of the day. And then it enters the sign of Aquarius at 11:55 p.m. Now, once we're in your moon in Aquarius, if you're not already in the dream world, you might find yourself wired up or jazzed up, especially if you're an air or fire sign. And this might work well for you if you're a night owl. Otherwise, I really recommend you get to sleep on the earlier side and let that dream world bring you in all the messages and ideas and revelations that might be breaking through. This is overall a really strong day for bringing in things that you want to create, make happen, sharing ideas. The caveat about this and into tomorrow, the 30th, Thursday, so Wednesday and Thursday, the 29th and 30th, are very strong idea sharing days. Knocking them around, seeing what comes up, engaging even with a provocative thought process to bring up stuff that can shoot in new directions. And it can be tremendously productive, especially Wednesday when there can be a gathering of those support systems or people who really want to work the idea and take it where it needs to go. The thing that's important here to keep in mind over Wednesday and Thursday is that, oh gosh, the sign of Aquarius is in many ways a tremendously wonderful energy, as they all are, all the signs. The piece about Aquarius to keep in mind is there often is a hunger for collaboration, for community, for sharing a bunch of ideas and doing things that are collaborative. The challenge with Aquarius energy is that as we invite in many voices, which may well be available to us on Wednesday and Thursday, is who's the leader? And if there is a clear leader and decision maker, then okay, that can work, even though there may be some pushback or challenges. But consider it this way: challenges and strident voices can bring up things that we haven't really considered, can help us tease out new ways of thinking. And it doesn't have to be conflict. One of the most difficult things I think that's been going on, and we all see it for quite some period of time now, is the strong divisions that are happening, not just in the United States, but in many countries right now. This sense of it's us against them. And therefore we are stopping ideas and growth. When things become so divisive, the ability to share ideas and come up with solutions gets totally stymied because we're just in this arena of I'm right, you're wrong. No, I'm right, you're wrong. And end of story. So that everything becomes throwing things at one another or attacks, and nothing is about creative solutions. In order to arrive at creative solutions, we have to be willing to hear other sides and digest that information and step out of the way of trying to convince someone of our platform and think more in terms of what can I learn from this information? What is it that is keeping us so far apart? And where do we find common ground to agree on what it is we want to create together instead of always attacking and tearing down? Because when we're always attacking and tearing down, obviously, there is no growth. There is no shared goal. There is no ability to create something that stands on its own and that both camps, all camps, can look at as being, okay, this has been a collaboration. What's happened is the word compromise has become a concession. It's no longer viewed as a way that we can come to the table and see a winning on all sides. It's seen as who's going to concede more and who's going to win more. And the strength of an Aquarian vision, and I'm talking about this a bit because Pluto is energetically in the sign of Aquarius. And therefore, we are in this period, decades long, that will be about how do we transform in ways that ideally help us evolve as a human species. And depending on anthropologist or sociologist that you listen to, we are either backsliding or incrementally growing. But I think the real question here becomes, are we moving in ways that is working with everything we are as a people, as a planet, with the other species? Are we moving in ways that is supportive for growth for all Earth's inhabitants? And obviously, not all of Earth's inhabitants are going to survive, nor should they, in an evolutionary frame. But this is all part of the discussion. But we're also hitting a wall of hubris, as you can probably hear me saying, because why do humans get to decide? Why are we the self-appointed gods of what happens to the rest of the planet? And why is just a select group of humans the one or the ones who get to decide? So I look at Wednesday and Thursday as seminal days in this waxing moon cycle, where each one of us can make a decision about how we're going to come to the table. How are we going to declare what it is we want, believe in, and make happen, while at the same time listening and taking into account what another voice or voices may want to say. And depending on what each of us are doing, this might seem very small. It might just be a family, like talking with one another. It could be an office. It could be neighbors. It could be governmental bodies. It could be institutions, corporations. Are we taking advantage on these days where we can work in ways that are more about collaborative goals while opening into a way of hearing what true collaboration means? The moon goes void, of course, at 2:15 a.m. on Halloween, Samhain, Friday, the 31st of October. And it enters the sign of Pisces at 7:46 a.m. Now, I love this weekend energetically. This has always been a very special time of year to me, even before I understood it as anything other than Halloween when I was a little kid. I absolutely have always heard the wind in the trees on these days, feel very much the openness and the promise of the thinning of the veil, as is said, depending on the culture and the traditions of what older than Halloween is. And here in Mexico, of course, I'm on the threshold of Dia de Muertos. And these are very important days where I live, and the recognition of how every day, it's so interesting because every day, it depends on the Mexican, because there's a great deal of influence with Christian fundamentalism in Mexico at this point in time, but more traditional Mexicans who are linked to the marriage or the commingling, if you will, of indigenous cultures with Catholicism or pure indigenous are very much in touch with the reality that every day, every moment, we are alive. We are also closer to death because every day we wake up, we are closer to passing into the next world. And so there is a humor here about that, even though obviously there are deaths of great sadness, but there's overall a awareness of the absolute gift of life. And I think that's always important to keep in mind, because we can get hung up with a sense of, oh, things aren't happening quickly for me, or, oh, this is so hard, and whatever life might be presenting to us. And right now, it's like a continual assault, it may feel like. But appreciate the day. Find something to open into. And that's so available to us on these days. The morning of the 31st can feel a little like fast. And we can be presented with, oh, but this has to happen and that has to happen. We can get derailed. And so if you do feel like you have to act very quickly on your feet on Friday morning, make sure you take a centering moment, see where you are in space, and also be aware where others are, because there is that accident-prone energy that I see when The moon is in dialogue with Uranus in a challenging aspect, and that happens when emotionally we're one place, but things are moving quickly. So we want to pay attention to where we are in space. And with that kind of adaptability, also, we want to keep in mind how ideas are transmitted, what we say to one another, how messages are received. Super important to have that awareness of who's saying what when, and is that, am I receiving the information in a way that I really understand? We are in the shadow of the retrograde, Mercury retrograde, which will happen at the end of next week. So this is an emphasis of just start to be super aware of communication. And with that moon in Pisces, we are in super heightened intuition. And so we can take advantage of that if we stop and listen for it and pay attention to it when it's around us. Otherwise, we're just getting barraged with a lot of noise that isn't necessarily taking us where we need to go. Highly creative weekend, fabulous for music, meditation, visual ideas. It can feel hyper real in many ways. And for those who feel a connection to someone who has passed into the other world, died, this is a tremendous weekend for just honoring that and connecting with ancestors, friends, loved ones. There's a richness in it, which can take us all the way from grief to joy and gratitude. Sunday the 2nd, just to end on that. So the 1st, November 1st, and Sunday the 2nd, again, special days here in Mexico, but the overall temperature of these days is, I think, very sweet and very loving and very connected, unless someone wants to sink into a sense of victimization and being cast off. I strongly recommend you don't fall into that place. But if you feel that's where you're going, again, check in, reach out, and connect with someone who loves you, who can help you buoy through this and get to the other side of it. The moon is void, of course, at 10:15 a.m. on Sunday the 2nd. How I see daylight savings time ends for those who do that. Again, this isn't something we do in Mexico. And it enters Aries at 10:39 a.m. So once it's in the sign of Aries, boom, we are moving. Things are happening very quickly, very different energy. And depending on what you want to do, there can be a lot of fast movement activity and enjoying just body in motion. The thing that's really important on this day at this point when the moon is in the sign of Aries is if you initiate or start anything, make sure you know where the money is coming from. And also make sure you check in with all those involved so that you have the support you need. This isn't a day to start something without letting the people who are involved know what you're doing, because you don't want to hurt feelings. Overall, a dynamite week.
You have been listening to Astrology Insight Now. Please share with your friends, and if you'd like to make a donation, you can do so at astrologyinsightnow.com. Have a stellar week, and we hope to see you next time.